Welcome, everybody. This is the third presentation of the 2021 on Pettaquamscutt presentations on the environment and history of the Narrow River watershed. My name is David Smith. My wife Rosemary and I are the facilitators for this series. This is our 10th season. And it's been a really great season so far, and I'm very excited about today's presentation. This presentation is being recorded and will be available through the library and at the On Pettaquamscutt website. Rosemary and I are both proud members and volunteers for Friends of Pettaquamscutt Farm, Narrow River Preservation Association, and the South County Museum. Each of these organizations sponsors many educational events during the spring, summer, and fall. The On Pettaquamscutt Winter Speaker Series fulfills the need of sharing information all year long about our beautiful watershed. For the last 9 years, we have offered 3 presentations per year during the winter months, and they have been well attended. This project is a collaboration of Friends of Pettaquamscutt Farm, River Preservation Association, and the South County Museum. It's all working towards educating the community about the Narrow River watershed, which encompasses portions of Narragansett, North Kingston, and South Kingston, Rhode Island. Each organization is asked to offer a speaker. I said the series is a collaboration of the 3 organizations, but really the secret sauce for our success is the 4th partner, and that is the Maury Lugents Memorial Library, which has hosted the first 9 seasons in the library, provided registration and publicity, and this season offered the Zoom video conferencing platform to conduct the program as we are unable to meet in one location. At this point, we have 55 strong, and we'll have many people on the waiting list. We thank the trustees and the staff of the Maury Lugents Memorial Library, and especially our superstar liaison, Marilyn Sherman. Financial support is provided by Trio Restaurant, which is giving each of the presenters a generous gift certificate to the Newport Restaurant Group. We encourage you to dine in or take out at Trio. We need to keep our local businesses going during these difficult times. But now I'd like to have commercials from the 3 partners in this collaboration, and we'll start with the Friends of Pettaquamscutt Farm. Tom Hoagland is the president. What's new on the farm, Tom?
Thank you, David. Well, I think what we're bragging about today is the Friends of Pettaquamscutt have recently compiled and printed a 16-page full-color booklet entitled Invasive Plants and the Threat They Pose. It profiles 13 of the most common widespread invasive plants, vines, and shrubs that are overrunning our woodlands, parks, and yards. Each plant has a page devoted to it with pictures of the plant, how the plant propagates, what impacts it is having on the environment, and how the plant spread can be managed. The booklet is free to everyone, and copies can now be obtained at most local libraries in South County and other locations like the South County Museum, the South Kingstown Guild, the Narragansett Senior Center, and the Narragansett Parks and Recreation Office. Or you can contact me, Tom Hoagland, for a copy, and I'll be happy to send it to you. My email is tom.hoagland963@gmail.com. Other than that, our volunteers continue to clear invasive plants from Pettaquamscutt Farm, and for the last several months, we have been concentrating our efforts along Ann Hoxie Lane between the South County Museum and the Auxiliary Beach parking lot. We meet nearly every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. at our tools trailer at South County Museum. New volunteers are always welcome to join us for fellowship exercise and the satisfaction of freeing the trees from invasive plants. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Now I wanted that other President Grant, Richard Grant of the Narrow River Preservation Association. What's new on the river, Richard?
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. As president of the Narrow River Preservation Association, NRPA, excuse me, for the past 29 years, I've been a president, and I've been a board member for 49 years. I'm excited to be here with you today. Let me take a minute and bring you up to date on NRPA's recent involvement with an accent on what has happened since the last meeting. The relatively new strategic plan has been a big help during the pandemic. I am very happy to announce also that NRPA has a new program coordinator, Rebecca Russell, and we're very happy that she's joined NRPA, and we're looking forward to working with her. And the sales of Dr. Barry Devine's book, The Pettaquamscutt Estuary, now a river, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, continues to sell well. With the introduction of the second edition, members of NRPA can purchase the book for $30 and non-members for $40 at narrowriver.org. The Narrow River Osprey family will follow next. But I want to just say that the Legacy Edition is still available for $100. And I want to tell you that sales on that went above expectation. I'll tell you now that the family 2020 video composed by Allison Cates and Craig Wood received honorable mention at the recent RI Nature Video Festival. The video can be seen at narrowriver.org. NRPA's most recent newsletter listing achievements and a schedule of events is also available online. Riverwatch, NRPA's water quality monitoring system at 13 sites, will begin soon. This year's program marks the 30th Riverwatch season. NRPA thanks you for joining on Pettaquamscutt. I will close my chat with you today with a very special thank you. Congratulations to Rosemary and David Smith. That is their 10th year of presenting on Pettaquamscutt. NRPA would also like to thank the Friends of Conotchett Farm Narrow River Preservation Association Board of Directors, South County Museum, and Murray Lucian's Memorial Library, especially Marilyn Sherman. Thank you very much for everything you've done. You couldn't list the number of things you've had to do to make all this work. And also we had a very generous support from Trio Restaurant for the last 10 years of sponsoring the series. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody involved in this presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And then we have now Heather Gazilowitz from the South County Museum. And it looks like a nice snowy picture there, but tell us what you're going to do this spring.
It's an exciting time. Right now, I just got back from checking on our eggs. We have them in the incubator, and they should hatch on this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And why is that important? Well, they're adding on to our heritage flock of Rhode Island Reds, and they'll also have the opportunity to meet all of our visitors on our Spring Family Day that is this Saturday. We're very excited to provide outside educational opportunities that kind of are disguised because they're so fun. We will have sheep shearing coming up on the 24th. Do be there prompt at 11, because believe it or not, shearing 3 sheep is not that difficult, and it goes really fast, and they love it. But then we're going to have many more events coming up in the future, including the commercial fishing exhibit. This exhibit has been in the process for at least 2 years, and the content is so vast that we've decided that this will be an ongoing exhibit for the next 2 years. We really hope that you'll come join us when that opens in May. And finally, if you're interested in stopping by, we are open Friday and Saturday to the public, 10 to 4. in our gift shop, we do have the free pamphlets from the Friends of Canachet. And if you come on a Saturday, you can see them at work. Believe it or not, we have hot chocolate, coffee, tea, all available for you if you come by on a Saturday. And finally, we also do have the Pettaquamscutt publication that Richard Grant just talked about, and we're happy to help you with other great finds. I'm looking forward to hearing about the Osprey, because at the museum, we're looking forward to our 2 Ospreys coming back to the pole that is right at the entrance when you come to the campus. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather.
Mhm.
Now, I think we need to hear from Marilyn Sherman from the library.
Hi,
What's going on, Marilyn?
hi. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, I want to ask if people are interested in the library events, that they sign up for our newsletter. We send out a monthly newsletter to people's emails, letting them know about everything that's going on. This month, one of the things that I think might be of interest to this group is we're going to be having a program on Tuesday, the 20th, War Pigeons, the history of messenger pigeons during warfare being used to carry messages. It was really fascinating. So you're invited to join us for that. That's 6:30. Just sign up for our newsletter or go to our registration page and see what we have going on. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but we do have longer hours now. We're open Monday through Thursday from 10 to 7 p.m. And then we're open Friday, 10 to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 10 to 5. So please come in and visit us.
All right, thank you, Marilyn. I think we want to get started now. But first, I want to remind you that the videos will be, this presentation will be recorded, and the video will be placed on the Pettaquamscutt website and the library website. Please keep your device on mute during the presentation. You can enter your questions in the chat window. At the end of the program, we'll select some questions and put Craig on the spot for those. Craig Wood is an ecologist with over 30 years of experience conducting natural resource investigations and implementing habitat restoration projects involving salt marshes, vernal pools, dam removals, trout streams, and abandoned cranberry bogs. Craig earned a BS from the University of Connecticut and an MS from the URI. He is a board member of both the Narrow River Preservation Association and the Narrow River Land Trust. But most important for us today is that he is the Osprey guy, sharing his deep knowledge and love of this amazing bird with special presentations in local schools and development of the Osprey webcam on Narrow River. Craig, go to it.
Well, thank you very much, David. I think before I share my screen, I just want to move my camera here to show you that I am joined by our ambassador to our Osprey education program. We refer to her as Petty. She's an adolescent female that the association acquired in 2017 to help with our education program. So with that, I think it's time to share my screen. Sorry for the delay there. These are all different programs. I think I have to know about 4 different ones with work. So and presentation. All right. Well, sorry for that delay, folks. Are we good to go? You can see my screen? I'll take that as a yes. Well, again, David, thank you very much for that introduction. And here to talk about ospreys of Narrow River, something that I'm very passionate about, and hopefully that comes across in my presentation. I'd like to begin just by reviewing the agenda of what I hope to cover today. I want to start out by just some fun facts, I guess, on why osprey are so fascinating. And then I want to provide some background on our osprey education program. It's much of the information that I want to present today on identification, adaptations, contaminants in the food chain, natural history, and migration is all information that we share with the local fourth graders that we reach as part of our education program. So I want to provide some kind of fundamental background for that. And then I'll talk a bit about remaining threats to the existing population. I'd like to spend a little time explaining how the webcam actually works and how we use it as an educational tool. And then I'll end with some statistics on the local population. So first, why ospreys? Well, there could not be a more iconic animal for the Narrow River estuary. It represents just ideal breeding habitat for osprey, and they are frequently observed feeding along the river. They're remarkably charismatic birds. They're very easy to observe because they tolerate human presence. And as I think you'll find from my presentation, that they make ideal subjects for environmental education. Ospreys are a very unusual species. They are the sole representative in their family, yet this single species is found almost all over the world, on every continent except Antarctica, which is really impressive. And of course, I'm sure as most of you know, with unique among raptors, they only eat fish. Now, ospreys sit at the top of the aquatic food chain, and as such, they're sentinel species providing important information on the health of aquatic ecosystems. And we know that because of a very tragic problem that happened back in the 1950s and 60s as osprey populations declined dramatically as a result of contamination of their environment, specifically a pesticide DDT that was used widely to control mosquitoes. Talk about that a little bit more later in the presentation. But in part because of just how charismatic the species is, ospreys played a pivotal role in the banning of the use of DDT in the 1970s. And after that, the ospreys began a slow but steady recovery. And, you know, one of the nicest things I find is that osprey truly represent a remarkable local conservation success story. So just to set that stage a little bit, this is an excerpt from a Audubon newsletter from 1974. And, you know, I'm sure you can all read this on your own, but, you know, if the DDT contamination wasn't bad enough, the osprey were still being persecuted. And so in 1974, there were only 7 osprey nests in the entire state of Rhode Island, which is just remarkable when you think about how common they are today. So the good news is this graph, and this is data from the Audubon Society of Rhode Island's Osprey Monitoring Program run by John Schoons. Anyone who is interested in what I have to say today, I urge you to learn more about this program. It is absolutely wonderful volunteer citizen scientist monitoring program, and they're always looking for more volunteers. As scientists, you can never have enough data. So what this graph shows is back in the 1970s, there in the blue line, there were less than, you can see less than 10 active nests. But today, that number is over 150. So a wonderful comeback, but it didn't happen overnight. Osprey don't spread that quickly. They when they return from their migration, they actually don't travel very far from where they hatched. Of course, the other nice thing, that the green line is the number of fledglings, and you can see 2020 was a banner year with 300 chicks successfully fledged from the nests that were monitored. So here is some background. I'd like to provide a timeline of the Osprey Education Program. The genesis of this program started with a conversation with my wife, who's a fourth grade teacher at Monsignor Clark School. And she was mentioning that she had an upcoming STEM curriculum in ecosystems and adaptations. And a light bulb went off that Osprey could not be a better example to illustrate the concept of ecological adaptations. And so that's how it began. The first 3 years were just at Monsignor Clark. In 2017, we acquired our ambassador, Petty, and we also expanded into Narragansett Elementary. These first 4 years of the program, the presentation focused heavily on migration, and maybe you can see in the photograph in the lower left, I would go to the classrooms before the spring migration would begin and provide the students with a map and a grid, and I would provide the teachers with coordinates roughly 2 times a week, so that the students could track the progress of the osprey on their northern migration, kind of like you would track a hurricane. And that was pretty exciting. At the time, there were many birds that were outfitted with satellite transmitters, and we would have contests between different birds as to which one got to their home nest first. The fall of 2017, however, was very tragic for a lot of the osprey population, in part because of how active the hurricane season was. And all of the local birds, New England birds that were outfitted with these transmitters were lost. It was about 9 birds. So as a consequence, going into 2018, kind of had to reinvent the program. We reached out to about 200 students that year, picked up 1 school in South Kingstown, but I felt something was lacking, And so I had the idea that, well, how wonderful would it be if we could actually broadcast to the students a live Osprey webcam, so they could actually see the return of the Osprey and watch behavior right in their own classroom using the teacher's smart boards. So that began the quest of the Osprey webcam. So the first thing that we did was to look at existing nests to see if there was one that we could simply outfit with the surveillance equipment. And we essentially had two criteria. One is the nest had to be reasonably accessible, not only to initially install the equipment, but it does need to be annually maintained. And secondly, we wanted the webcam to really have dramatic views of the Narrow River watershed in the background. So we quickly realized there was not a existing nest that met that criteria. So we decided to build our own. And through permission from Narrow River Land Trust in the early spring of 2019, the Narrow River Preservation and NRPA, Narrow River Land Trust constructed an Osprey nest platform along Narrow River on the Garrison Acres property just south of Middlebridge. That year we expanded to 4 schools, reaching more than 250 students. And also we were successful in attracting a young pair to the platform where they took up some housekeeping activities. And, this is where the luck begins. Everything from this point forward is just remarkable how well things came together. I just feel so fortunate. So first of all, attracting a pair the first year that you install a new platform is certainly not guaranteed. Most will go unoccupied for at least 1 year. So the fact that we were able to attract a pair is quite remarkable. And we know that they were young birds because they only took up nest keeping, which is typical for inexperienced birds before they're actually able to successfully rear young. What a year 2020 was for the Osprey education program. We began with a fundraising campaign, raised over $6,500 to fund the hardware necessary for the surveillance equipment. That was the good news. The bad news is we had roughly a month and a half to figure out how to order all of this stuff, how it goes together, and get it all installed before the birds return from their wintering grounds, which can be as early as St. Patrick's Day. So this, and I cannot begin to tell you how difficult that was. We really didn't know what we were doing. These are not off-the-shelf items that you go to Best Buy and secure. It's all a custom build and required a lot of work from a lot of dedicated individuals. However, the webcam went live just before we did our presentation to our school children. And the pair came back. It was remarkably successful. The pair fledged 3 chicks. Again, this is really their first successful nesting attempt as far as we're aware. And as many of you probably saw, we published weekly updates in the Narragansett Times. So thanks for them for letting us get that news out. And then lastly, in this year, Richard mentioned the short film that Allison put together, entered into the Nature Video Festival, won honorable mention. So again, congratulations and kudos to Allison for that fine work. We just wrapped up our education program with school kids. It was 6 different schools, over 300 children. And I guess it goes without saying that both, in 2020 and 2021, we kind of had to reinvent the program again into a Zoom format, but I think it has gone quite successfully. So with that, I am going to launch into my presentation on ospreys and their life history. Osprey are included in a broad group of birds called raptors. Common traits of birds in this raptor group are that they all hunt animals that are relatively large to their own size. It's remarkable to think about it, but an osprey can lift a fish of its own weight out of the water. They all have very keen eyesight. Osprey are able to see fish underwater from 100 feet as they're hovering over the water surface. They all have very strong feet equipped with talons and powerful curved beaks for tearing flesh. So it's not difficult to understand where the word raptor comes from, as it's Latin, meaning to seize or take by force. And in this raptor group, you've got eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, among several others. And here in Rhode Island, the photographs here on the right, you can see that there's a very wide range in size of raptors, ranging from the bald eagle to the very small diminutive American kestrel that can sit in the palm of your hand. So the next thing I'd like to cover is osprey identification. Fortunately, they're actually quite easy to identify and have very many distinct characteristics. First, they are generally dark above and white underneath. The head is white and has a very distinctive black eye band that I'm sure most people are familiar with. When they're flying overhead, you can see their what's called a wrist patch. It's very dark. That photograph is pointing to it. The beaks are very curved for raptors, and they're jet black. Female osprey display what's called a necklace. It's brown speckled feathers on what otherwise would be a white chest. They're large birds with a wingspan of up to 6 feet, and they weigh roughly 3 to 4 pounds. And with all raptors, the females tend to be larger than the males. Another thing that if you're going to spend time in and around an osprey nest, monitoring the activity toward the end of the season, it's important to know how to tell the difference between the young and the adults. The chicks grow very rapidly. By the end of the season, they are roughly 80% the size of the parents. So size alone is not going to help you distinguish between a juvenile osprey and its parents. But fortunately, there are 2 very distinctive characteristics where you can easily tell them apart. The first is eye color. If you look in the lower left, juvenile birds have a reddish or orange iris, where adult osprey have an incredibly bright yellow iris, highlighter yellow, I like to refer to it as. The other characteristic is that young birds have white at the tip of their dark feathers, giving them a speckled appearance. Those white tips wear off after about a year and a half, and then they're going to look just like their parents, and then their eye color changes too, roughly in that about year and a half time frame. So if you look at the bird on the right, there's hopefully you can see two important characteristics. One is the iris is orange, and they clearly have the speckled appearance, the white at the tip of their dark feathers. Okay, that clearly distinguishes this bird as a juvenile. Now, if you look at the bird to the left, it's lacking the speckled appearance, and if you look closely, the iris is yellow, so that we know that this is an adult bird, and the breast is solid white. So we know then that this is the adult male. And then the bird in the background, you can see the eye color, so you know that it is an adult, and you can't see the breast, but chances are that's the female adult. So before I review osprey calls, now that you're an expert in osprey identification, I shouldn't need to tell you that as this bird flies over your head, you would easily be able to distinguish this bird as an adult female with its yellow iris and the necklace, which is clearly displayed here. So osprey have a high-pitched whistling voice. They have two calls, one being a slow set of chirps, and the other, the chirps are strung together. So I'm sure anyone who spent any time in Narrow River or coastal Rhode Island, the call of an osprey is very distinctive. So first, here's the slow chirps. An adult male, by the way. And next, this is the strung together chirps, a female, as you can tell by the necklace. So next, I'd like to quickly cover remarkable adaptations osprey have to just excel in catching fish. Research shows that osprey will successfully catch a fish at least 1 out of every 4 dives, which is remarkable when you think about everything that needs to come together to successfully pull a fish out of the water. So in addition to their oversized legs, they have oversized feet. And the bottom of their feet, the soles of their feet have specialized scales that make them extremely rough. And at the tip of their toes, they have extremely long curved talons that essentially serve as fish hooks. On top of that, on the back of the talons, there are specialized scales that are backwards facing that act like a barb on a fish hook. And probably one of the coolest things about Osprey, in my humble opinion, is the fact that they have reversible outer toes. So Osprey are able to take that toe that I'm pointing to, which would normally be facing forward, but just before they plunge into the water, that toe is rotated all the way to the back. So when they secure a fish, they've got two toes facing forward and two toes facing back. Their plumage, their feathers are designed to efficiently shed water. They have a special membrane that closes their nostrils when they dive into the water, sometimes at speeds of 80 miles an hour to keep water out of their lungs. And they also have a specialized clear lens to protect their eyes as they plunge into the water, but it allows them to continue to see under the water, which is obviously an excellent competitive advantage when you're trying to secure a fish. Osprey are able to generate a tremendous amount of lift, as I mentioned before. Well, they rarely do, but they do have the ability to lift a fish that weighs just as much as they do. And, you know, it's because of this that you can see how the U.S. Marine Corps airplane, the V-22 Osprey with its tilt rotors gets its name. So I'd like to show a brief video here demonstrating, hopefully you found that a bit interesting, remarkable footage. Another very important ecological concept is the food chain. And specifically, I just wanted to review how DDT, the pesticide that we had talked about previously, that was widely used to control mosquitoes in and around salt marshes. It's no great surprise that that chemical got into the sediments, into the food chain, was uptaken by producers and then ultimately by consumers going up the food chain. And the DDT, which is a synthetic chlorinated hydrocarbon, you know, has two nasty traits. One is it's extremely slow to biodegrade. So it's going to be in the environment for decades, if not centuries. And it also is fat soluble, meaning that as prey are consumed that have DDT in the tissue, the next animal up the food chain does not excrete that chemical. It just continues to accumulate in their fatty tissues. And you can see by this graphic that by the time you get to the top of the food chain, which are osprey, that's a 5-fold order of magnitude increase in concentration. And the problem with DDT at these levels is that it interferes with calcium metabolism, so that female osprey were not able to lay eggs with the appropriate shell thickness. And these thin eggs would crack during incubation. And as a result, the population crashed. Now, of course, osprey aren't alone in experiencing the negative effects of DDT. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Rachel Carson's classic novel, Silent Spring. And she wrote about the crash of robin populations in Michigan, where DDT was used extensively to control Dutch elm disease, got into the soil, was uptaken by earthworms, and in turn, robins experienced a population crash for the same reason. But the good news is obviously that there's been a comeback, and the osprey population in Rhode Island now equals, if not somewhat exceeds, population estimates in the 1940s. A little bit about osprey natural history. I'm sure, as everyone is aware, osprey build very large, heavy nests. They're typically near open, shallow water bodies, just like Narrow River. They don't dive that deeply into the water to catch fish. It's not like they are gannets that dive head first and secure fish with their beaks. Those birds can go 15, 20 feet underwater. As I'm sure you've seen, osprey nests are typically up high, very exposed. As I mentioned, ospreys have very long wings. They need the ability to approach their nest from any direction so that they can return to the nest into the wind, almost like a runway. And of course, any tall structure will do, whether it was intended for them or not. So utility poles and cell towers are obvious spots, even channel markers in some cases. Now, ospreys generally are nesting above the ground to avoid predation from mammals, mainly raccoons. But in situations where you don't have ground predators, osprey will nest right on the ground. As you can see, this is a nest on Nantucket in the center. So as I mentioned, birds return from their wintering grounds in late March, sometimes as early as St. Patrick's Day. Nesting begins in April. 2 to 4 eggs is typical. The male typically does most of the hunting, while the female does the lion's share of the incubation. That can be different in some pairs. Chicks typically are hatching in June, and then it's another 7-8 weeks before the young chicks are able to fledge or fly from the nest. Osprey leave the area as early as late August into early September. We know they migrate south. The adults leave first, leaving the young entirely on their own to fare for themselves, both fishing and to figure out where they're supposed to go. So obviously instinct plays a very important role in osprey migration. Interestingly, the pair go their separate ways. They do not stay together in the winter. Yet a pair will bond to a nest site and return to the same nest site year after year, as long as they successfully make the journey back and forth, which is by no means guaranteed. And should one of the pair not make it back, it's the remaining bird will find another mate and continue on. So where do we know where they go? So older banding studies combined with more recent satellite telemetry work pinpoints where these birds go in the winter months, and it's really fascinating data. The photograph of this bird on the right, maybe you can see there's a transmitter, like a small backpack, and then an antenna that sticks off the back. So from that data, you get just a remarkable feedback of exactly where these birds spend each and every night. And this is the northern migration of a female called Belle. This was her spring migration north in 2015. Her overwintering spot was on a tributary to the Amazon River. So she flew from Brazil up South America, across the Caribbean, along the Hispaniola chain of islands, and then from Cuba flew over the Straits of Florida, and then up the eastern seaboard. So Brazil to Martha's Vineyard in 28 days, 4,613 miles, just a remarkable journey. And this was the data that, going back to the Osprey education program, this is the data that I would be providing to teachers, generally 2 times a week, so that the students could plot the birds on their way north. But as I mentioned before, that data is no longer available. The other, I'll just mention one other important aspect of this telemetry work is it helps to identify critical habitats for the birds. And this is data from a male that took up residence on a nest in Jamestown off of North Road. This particular nest has a webcam on it as well, which is up and running. Those birds came back yesterday, I believe. But this shows Neil's travels from Jamestown over a week in early May. And what's interesting is how much time Neil spent in the upper reaches of Narrow River. And that's because Neil and a lot of his compadres were taking advantage of the herring population in the river at that time. The population is stable, as I mentioned before, but we do need to remain vigilant, because there certainly still remain a number of threats to the population. Habitat loss is not so much an issue on the eastern seaboard with the environmental protections in place, but most of our Rhode Island birds are overwintering in central South America, as far south as Argentina. And there's a lot of habitat loss going on, as we know, in those regions of the world. Electrocution, well, that's an obvious hazard given where they like to hang out. Persecution remains a problem. A migrating bird that spends any time around a fish farm in a third world country is certainly at high risk of being shot. They're also shot as a case of mistaken identity by poultry farmers who think osprey are a threat to their chickens, which is ironic because farmers in the 1800s knew that the best thing they could do to protect their chickens was to have an osprey nest nearby their chicken coop, because the pair would certainly keep away any other raptors that could be a threat to their chickens. Talked about chemicals, contaminants in the food chain. Well, DDT, along with a number of other chemicals, are highly resistant to decay. So they're still in the environment. Dieldrin, PCBs, I mean, there's quite a long list. And then there are a number of contaminants of emerging concern, like PFAS and pharmaceuticals, and the effects of these chemicals on osprey and birds in general are just not understood at this time. Vehicle strikes remain a problem. Weather can be an issue. This image is of 2017. Folks may remember what an active hurricane season it was, and unfortunately, hurricanes really did a number on the osprey population, at least those that were equipped with satellite transmitters, as I mentioned before. Fishing line and lures aren't going to threaten the entire population, but they certainly do affect individual birds. So we do need to be careful to not leave those in the environment. If anyone ever wondered, how do you broadcast a live signal from a remote location without a source of conventional power or internet connectivity? Well, I didn't know either. So this is what we had to figure out in early 2020. This is a drone image of the platform on Garrison Acres. You can, our power comes from a 300 watt solar panel. There's a control box behind the panel that houses two 12-volt gel batteries, as well as a very sophisticated charger and a PoE switch from which there's a cable that, a single cable that goes underground and up the platform to the surveillance equipment on the back of the Nest platform. You can also see the cone that we have installed on the platform to deter raccoons from climbing up the post and stealing the eggs. So a little bit more on the technology here. So there's a high definition infrared camera, pendulum camera on the back of the nest. There's an infrared lamp so that you can see the nest at night. There's a high definition microphone. And then there's a transmitting antenna that transmits a Wi-Fi signal to Narrow River kayaks, where it is received and uploaded to our web host, and that in turn gets loaded to our website, and where it can be enjoyed by anyone going to our website. I just wanted to play the video here that Allison put together of clips from the 2020 breeding season. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have already seen this, but I'm hoping from what I shared with you, you can watch this now with a new appreciation for just how fascinating the birds are. And I would also urge you to look at the landscape in the background and the activity on the river. And I'm just very happy to report that all the undeveloped lands that you see in the background are protected in perpetuity between the Narrow River Land Trust, Rhode Island Audubon Society, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the town of Narragansett. So this image will look the same now as it will 50 years from now, aside from any potential changes to the salt marsh as a function of sea level rise, but maybe that can be a subject of a future talk. So with no further ado, seaweed is used to insulate the nest. the hatching of the chicks is staggered such that if food resources are limited, the older chicks will have dominance over the younger. The female feeds the chick that's closest to it. Doesn't distribute the food equally. So another unique thing about osprey, the fact that the young play possum. It's unique among raptors, but it makes them really easy to band. We tried to stabilize the nest a little better this year. Ken McShane's our master carpenter. He's responsible for all the handiwork you see here. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. So with the webcam now in place, we started last year with our student Osprey observer program. And so on our website, we developed a monitoring form where students can record the start and end date of their observations, climatic conditions, and note any behaviors that they see. And this is not terribly dissimilar from John Schoon's program with the statewide monitoring program. And so to entice the students, if any student who fills out 4 of these forms for at least 15 minutes per session, we provide them with a certificate as well as this sticker for their laptop or water bottle. And captured this quote out of a recent paper because I do think it kind of captures the spirit of what we're trying to do with our Osprey education program, and frankly with all of our family-related education and outreach efforts that we do throughout the course of the year. But we're trying to reach the kids early and instill a sense of environmental consciousness. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And I printed here one of the thank you notes I got just to demonstrate that clearly our messaging is getting through to a large number of the students. So just remarkably rewarding. Just to mention that the webcam is a 365-day, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day operation. You never know what you're going to see. And just the scenery alone is, I think, worth tuning in. Lastly, I just wanted to talk a bit about population of osprey within the Narrow River watershed itself. This graphic on the right highlights the location of active nests within our 14 plus or minus square mile watershed outlined in red. There are a total of 13 nests in the watershed. I think most people are familiar. I guess the most iconic nest in the watershed is the one right at Sprague Bridge, photographed here in 2010. It used to be a mammoth nest that was just accumulating material over generations of birds. A good deal of that nest blew off. I think it was a thunderstorm in 2015, if I remember correctly. But that's not a problem for osprey. Even if all of their nest from the previous year happens to get swept off of a platform, they'll simply start over and not be deterred at all. So I said there are 13 nests in the watershed. The one of them, the one at South County Museum, is not included in this data. Hopefully, maybe even someone interested today may take up monitoring of that spot. As I said before, Rhode Island Audubon is always looking for more citizens to participate in their program. So as far as breeding success goes, this is a graph comparing the percent of active nests that were successful. In other words, nests that where there was activity and the percentage of them that successfully fledged young. The green bars are the entire state of Rhode Island, and the blue bars are the 12 nests within the watershed. And you can see here that the vast majority, almost 9 out of 10 nests throughout the state that were active actually fledged young, which is a wonderful thing. Narrow River, over this particular 5-year record from 2016 to 2020, was a little below the average, but it was, I think, skewed by data in 2019, where you can see only half of the active nests in Narrow River were active. So just a sense that there is variability year to year and location to location. Another important metric for the health of the population is the average number of fledglings per nest. The osprey can have anywhere from 1 to 4 fledglings per nest. 4 is very unusual, and somewhere on the order of 2 is typical. So here I'm over the same 5-year period comparing the monitored nests over the entire state to the 12 nests within the watershed. And you can see things were reasonably consistent. However, 2017 was a poor year in that the average number of fledglings per nest was less than 1, 0.79, but the overall average was pretty similar. That low number kind of skewed the 5-year average, so falling below the statewide average. However, these are excellent numbers. Anywhere, once you're above 1, you are successfully replacing the average mortality and have a growing population. Lastly, just wanted to present here that, again, this is data straight from the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, that just how important South County is on the right to the osprey population in Rhode Island. So there were close to 300, I think actually the number was exactly 300, if memory serves me right, of fledglings from the state, and 33% were from South County. For those who might be interested in further reading, I thought I'd make 2 suggestions, both written by very well-known osprey researchers. The book on the left, written by Dr. Alan Poole from Cornell. This is a book for adults. It's a reboot of a classic book he wrote in the late 1980s, but a fascinating read. You'll learn much more than what you heard today. So that's a wonderful publication. And the book on the right is a children's book. And so anyone who has children or grandchildren from, say, 4th to 8th grade, I couldn't recommend this highly enough. It is about Belle. I think if you recall, I mentioned we showed her migration from Brazil to Martha's Vineyard. Dr. Beauregard from Drexel University spent a lot of time studying osprey on Martha's Vineyard. He's responsible for most of the radio and satellite telemetry tracking data, and just a wonderful tale his experiences with a couple of school children who took up an active interest in what he was doing. So I have a lot of people to thank. It's just been a remarkably fulfilling program for me. Obviously, too many people here to thank, but I just wanted to mention and thank my wife, who's really the inspiration behind the whole program, the Farrell family for their remarkable contributions to cover operating costs for the webcam. Allison Cates, who edited the film, was our program coordinator and spent a lot of time, continues to spend a lot of time to make this program the success that it is. And lastly, just a shout out to John Schoons. A lot of the information I presented today is kind of an offshoot of information that he shares when he trains his monitors. And the list goes on and on. I just simply thank everyone who was involved, and I thank everyone who listened in today.
Well, thank you, Craig. Would you kill your screen share? Okay, great.
Just took me a while to find the button.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think Rosemary has some questions for you, but before that, I want to tell you that thanks to Trio Restaurant, you've earned your keep. So we'll be giving you a gift certificate to the Newport Restaurant Group, provided you answer the questions that we have. So, Rosemary, what do you have for Craig? Would you unmute yourself? Okay. Come on in.
Yeah, my question is, what's the difference between an osprey and an ern? ERN or ERNE?
Well, I've got to be honest with you that I have never heard that term before, so it looks like my free dinner is in jeopardy right out of the box. If you email that question to NRPA, so I have your contact information, I will definitely provide you with a detailed answer.
It shows up in the crossword all the time.
Well, the floor is open if anybody's familiar with that term and can help shed some light on that, feel free to chime in.
Craig, I'm going to take another question from the chat, and it's from Eric, and he says, do the osprey prefer the shallow portions of Narrow River versus the deep upper ponds due to their preference for shallow water hunting?
Well, I think the short answer is that for them to be able to see the fish and successfully secure them, they need to be in the upper water column. So I would assume that fish are just easier to see if they're in shallow water and you can see their shadow reflecting off the bottom. But if fish are near the surface, which they kind of are in the upper ponds later in the year because of the lower dissolved oxygen content at depth in the upper ponds, I think you'll see fish or osprey feeding throughout the estuary from Gilbert Stewart all the way down.
Okay, good, thank you. So there's another question about feeding, and over the years, says Doug, I've wondered that the daytime feeding cycle revolves around daylight hours in the morning, noonish in the evening. Do you know how lighting from the sun on an overcast days and surface rippling can affect the sighting of fish at the top of the surface of the water?
Well, I've never read that there's a particular time of day that osprey favor, but as any fisherman would tell you, your best successes at fishing are early and late in the day, because under the bright sun, the fish tend to take cover. And a lot of that has to do because they're scared about an osprey swooping down and pulling them out. However, I suspect you will see osprey fishing any time of day. When you think about it, an adult osprey typically would eat on average about 4 fish a day. So think about the male osprey when the female's incubating the eggs, there's 8 fish alone. And now you talk about 3 fledglings potentially in the nest. They have to spend a lot of time fishing.
Great, thank you. This is from Veronica, a friend of yours. Many nights when there were eggs in the nest, there were no parents staying in the nest. Any idea why?
Well, we'd have to ask them that question, I guess, but I'll beat around the bush on that question to say that osprey have a very long incubation period, as much as 42 days. And, when you think about it, a chicken is probably 21 days. There's clearly something going on. And the fact that the female does not stay on the nest all the time, and the fact that they're unusual in the fact that they lack what's called a brood patch. In most birds, the breast of the female goes a little bald, so that the eggs have contact directly to the body. Osprey don't have that, so. I just think it's a combined effect of the amount of time spent incubating and the fact that they don't have that particular adaptation means that their incubation period just seems to extend longer than most birds and even other raptors.
Craig, this is a question from Rosemary and David. Osprey come to our backyard where the forest area is and take branches off of the trees. And sometimes the branches are longer than the osprey itself. So how much weight can an adult osprey carry?
So the simple answer to that is that an adult osprey can weigh as much as 4 pounds. So in theory, they can carry something as heavy as 4 pounds. They typically aren't trying to do that, however. And I guess aerodynamics plays a bit of a role in that as well, but that's over my head.
Over your head, I love it. Yeah, great. Well, I think that's it. Yeah, so we're good. So I want to thank you so much, Craig, for this wonderful presentation today. Your love for the osprey has certainly come across to the 64 Zoomers who were on with us today. I just know that the students in the classroom must love every minute of your presentation and their research work. So thank you so much again. And thank you to all who are here today for this excellent presentation. And the video will be on the website and available from the library probably in the next day or so. So thank you all again. Appreciate it. Thanks to Craig. Thumbs up.